In 3600 BC, Egypt, an ancient and powerful mutant, En-Sabanur, perhaps the first mutant, prepares for an important procedure. He has lived for thousands of years as a god to his various followers. He has lived so long through this procedure. Once in age, he transfers his consciousness to a younger body and starts anew. If that younger body belongs to a mutant, he obtains their ability, adding it to the many he already wields. This makes him incredibly powerful. But today, the process is interrupted when some of his followers betray him, instead burying him in his pyramid, leaving him trapped and unconscious, not to be awakened for thousands of years. In 1845, a boy named James Howlett sprouts bone claws. It's rage that activates the latent mutation when Thomas Logan kills the boy's father. The claws sprout, and James puts him through his father's killer. As Thomas Logan dies, he parts with a secret. He is James' true biological father, the product of an affair. James runs away from the house with Logan's son, Victor. They were already friends, and now they know they're brothers too. And Victor couldn't be happier to be rid of their abusive father. As they run together, they find Victor has a similar mutation with claws on his fingers, and both share an ability to rapidly heal from seemingly any wound. It also grants them long lives, long enough to fight in several major conflicts. They leave Canada and fight as mercenaries in America's Civil War, in World War I, and in World War II. It is around this time a boy named Eric Lenscher is separated from his mother at the Auschwitz concentration camp. He reaches out to her, and from his desperation, a mutant power manifests, the ability to control magnetic fields. Untargeted and raw, he only manages to twist and bend the fence between him and his mother. That catches the eye of Dr. Klaus Schmidt. He has Eric brought to him and demands he show him the power. The order is simple: move the coin on his desk. Eric fails, and Schmidt realizes he requires provocation, so he pulls a gun on Eric's mother and counts to 3. The coin doesn't move. He pulls the trigger. That does the trick. Through rage and grief, Eric does manipulate some magnetic fields, tearing the room apart and killing 2 of Schmidt's soldiers. In Westchester County, a shape-shifting mutant named Raven is desperate. She breaks into a mansion in search of food, only to meet a young Charles Xavier, a mutant like her with the ability to read and control minds. He tells her not to be afraid, and that she doesn't have to run anymore. Instead, he welcomes her to his family and treats her like a sister. The following year, James ends up a POW under the Japanese at a camp outside Nagasaki. As B-29s approach, one officer, Ichiro Yashida, frees the prisoners, but James knows the only hope of survival is below ground. As others choose death by their own blades, Yashida joins his POW in the well, and when the atom bomb falls, James shields the officer, while he himself is burned from head to toe, enduring the pain until his body rapidly heals. Yashida is thankful to his savior and offers his sword. James tells him to keep it safe for him. Someday, he'll come get it. By 1962, Charles and Raven are still like brother and sister, though she harbors resentment. Xavier is a mutant, but still gets to walk among people. His mutation doesn't affect his appearance. Raven, on the other hand, is blue, covered in strange patterns from head to toe. For her, blending into society means shape-shifting, conjuring a human form to mask her true self. And then there's Eric. He is unconcerned with blending in. His only concern is revenge. Using his powers honed after years of practice and fueled by rage, he finds those associated with Schmidt. He interrogates them, kills them, and slowly closes in on his enemy's location. Though he has no idea, he's stepping into a rapidly brewing World War III. Moira McTaggart of the CIA investigates U.S. Army Colonel Robert Hendry for suspicious behavior and finds him meeting with Schmidt, who now goes by Sebastian Shaw. Shaw leads a small group of mutants, including telepath Emma Frost. Moira spies while the mutants force Hendry to send a command to have nuclear missiles placed in Turkey. Shaw knows that this will be viewed as a threat by the Soviet Union, and they will respond in kind, taking the world one step closer to nuclear war. And why is he doing this? More and more mutants have been appearing recently, thanks to the dawn of the nuclear age. Shaw himself is one of them. His mutation allows him to absorb kinetic energy and redirect it, something he uses to kill Hendry once he is no longer needed. Believing mutants the superior race, Shaw hopes to trigger nuclear war, wiping out much of humanity while leaving the Earth nice and radiated, the perfect environment for mutants to thrive. After glimpsing mutants herself, Moira finds someone who can explain what she's seen. Charles Xavier, known for research on genetic mutation at Oxford. She brings him and Raven into a CIA operation to capture Shaw. And it just so happens it's around this time that Eric finds him too, but both have underestimated him and his band of mutants. Frost's telepathic abilities make Charles' own powers useless, and Eric is thrown from the submarine. Shaw escapes. To Eric, an unacceptable result. He pulls on the submarine as it sinks deeper, until Charles stops him, because he knows that in a blind rage, Eric will not give up. He will hold on to that sub as it drags him to the lower depths, and he would drown. Back at the CIA, Moira introduces them to Hank McCoy, someone Xavier quickly discovers is also a mutant, with feet resembling those of a great ape. Raven finds herself drawn to him, another whose mutation makes them different. Learning of her shape-shifting abilities, McCoy realizes her blood may hold the key to a cure, something that would let them retain their abilities while removing the outward effects of their mutation. They could look human. Soon, McCoy shows them Cerebro, something he's built which could amplify Xavier's telepathy. Using it, Xavier searches the globe and finds many mutants hiding among the human population. With Eric's help, he recruits a few for the impending war with Shaw, though not all are receptive to the cause.
Go yourself.
The new recruits quickly hit it off, finally enjoying the company of others like them. They show off their powers and choose some nicknames. Angel, for her ability to fly. Darwin, whose body transforms to adapt to any stimulus. Banshee, who emits powerful sound waves. Havoc, who throws energy blasts which wreak havoc. And Raven becomes Mystique. Finally, for Eric and Charles, they choose Magneto and Professor X. The two prove a powerful duo. They soon capture Frost and learn of Shaw's plan for World War III. But while the two leaders are out on their mission, Mystique and the new recruits are left at a facility with a few guards. Shaw and his band of mutants pay them a visit. First, they kill the guards. Then, they make a pitch. Once the general public learns of mutants will have a choice. Be enslaved or rise up to rule. Shaw makes it clear. Join him as part of the ruling class or become his enemy. Angel joins up. Darwin does not, and he becomes a casualty in Shaw's war of mutants. And as nuclear war approaches, the new recruits begin to train, learning to control their powers. Charles even helps Eric, teaching him that though rage has gotten him this far, he'll need something else to go further. Instead, Professor X unlocks the brightest corner of his mind, surfacing a warm but forgotten memory. He helps Eric find the point between rage and serenity. With it, Magneto causes a distant satellite to turn, something he would have thought beyond his powers until now. But not all embrace their mutation. McCoy continues to work on his cure that would hide the outward manifestations of mutation, something Raven has dreamed about. But that isn't exactly true. What she wants is to be accepted for who she is. Eric helps her see this. He tells her that she is beautiful, just as she is.
perfection.
It's a stark contrast to Charles, who has always told her to hide. By the time the cure is ready, she refuses it and encourages McCoy to do the same. But instead, he breaks her heart. "My feet in your natural blue form," he says, "will never be deemed beautiful." He takes the cure, and it backfires, instead accelerating mutation, turning him finally into Beast. Soon, Shaw's final domino is about to fall. Under his intimidation, the Soviet Union intends on placing nuclear missiles in Cuba, which will trigger a declaration of war. Xavier and his team are en route to stop it, but in their time together, philosophical differences between him and Eric have emerged. Eric wants revenge and will kill Shaw. Xavier insists they be the better men. They should not become executioners, but instead fight for peace. They stop the Soviet Union's ship and the nuclear missiles it carries. The crisis is averted, but Eric still needs that revenge. He taps into that thing between serenity and rage. He pulls Shaw's submarine from underwater and gets the protective helmet off his head, giving Xavier access to his mind. With the villain frozen in place, Magneto produces a familiar coin. This time, Magneto counts to 3 and sends that coin through Sebastian Shaw's skull. World War III is averted, but now the US and the Soviets, after seeing what Shaw nearly accomplished, unite under common cause. It is not each other they should fear, it's mutants. They fire their missiles on Magneto, Xavier, and the other mutants, but the missiles freeze in midair, stopped in Magneto's magnetic field. He redirects them back at the armies who fired them until Moira fires at him. The missiles fall, but Magneto deflects the bullet and it strikes Xavier's spine, paralyzing him from the waist down. Magneto accepts that this battle is over, but his work is not finished. He knows that humanity will never accept mutants into their society, so instead, mutants should form their own. Charles says goodbye to Raven. Of course he knows she will be going with Magneto. Later, a wheelchair-bound Xavier returns to the mansion, which he intends to convert into an academy. "We're still on the government's side," he tells Moira. "We're still G-men, just without the G." "No," she replies. "You're your own team now. It's better. You're X-Men." Finally, they kiss, as Xavier erases her memories of these events, ensuring he and the rest of the X-Men remain hidden. And elsewhere, Magneto breaks Frost out of prison, recruiting her to his cause. But soon, he lands himself back in prison, because in 1963, the president, John F. Kennedy, is assassinated, and the bullet curves. Of course, it must be the work of Magneto. For killing a president, he's tossed in a cell of concrete and sand 100 floors beneath the most heavily guarded building on the planet, the Pentagon. In truth, the bullet curved because Magneto was trying to protect JFK. He was one of them, a mutant. In 1965, Charles Xavier formally opens the School for Gifted Youngsters. To the outside world, a typical private boarding school. In reality, a safe haven for mutants to study and develop their powers. By 1973, mutants are still kept out of the public eye. Their existence is only known to a few, including Dr. Bolivar Trask, one of the world's leading weapons designers. Lately, he's been covertly experimenting on mutants, using their gifts to fuel his own research. Many mutants suffer and die by his hands, some who are close to Mystique. She finds out about his research and hunts him across the world. Finally, at the Paris Peace Accords, she kills him. But it does not have the impact she hoped. Instead, it convinces the government of the danger posed by mutants. They capture Mystique, torture her, experiment on her, and use what they learn to improve their anti-mutant weapons. As the Vietnam War nears its end, the toll on Victor Creed of fighting in so many wars is apparent. He enjoys the violence, regardless of who is on the receiving end, uniformed soldiers or otherwise. James, who has adopted his father's name of Logan, tries to stop Victor's wanton killing, but they are brothers, and after a century together, when Victor kills a senior officer for ordering him to stand down, Logan cannot help but defend him. Their treasonous act is met with a swift sentence of death by firing squad. Surviving the execution gets them both in front of Major William Stryker. They are not the first mutants he's come across. In fact, he's putting together a team of them to be deployed for dangerous missions. So they go from prisoners back to mercenaries once again, joining Agent Zero, whose impossible reflexes when combined with guns make him a formidable one-man army. John Wraith, teleportation, Fred Dukes, super strength, Chris Bradley, control over electrical devices, and the Merc who's as fast with blades as he is with his mouth, Wade Wilson. On a mission in Nigeria, Stryker has the team take out a group of diamond traffickers who got a hold of a special material, a metal stronger than any known material, adamantium. They interrogate the leader to find out it came from a meteorite being held at a nearby village. After that, the order is simple. Kill anyone who gets in their way or withholds information, civilians or otherwise. Kill until they get their hands on the rock. Victor couldn't be happier, and Logan has had enough. This is not what they signed up for, and he leaves. 6 years later, Logan has forged a life free of killing in the Canadian Rockies, a quiet life he shares with someone he loves. Her name is Kayla Silverfox. Tonight will be their last night together. It starts with a visit from Stryker with news that Victor is loose, killing anyone who is part of their team. He already took out Bradley. Any one of them could be next. Stryker needs Logan's help to get to Victor first. Logan refuses. That life is finished. That night, Kayla tells Logan a story about the lonely moon. She used to have a lover who lived in the spirit world with her, but the trickster was jealous. So he told the lover that the moon wanted flowers picked from our world. The lover left the spirit world, but he didn't know that once you leave, you can never go back. So every night he looks up in the sky and sees the moon and howls her name, but he can never touch her again. That lover's name is Kwekuatsu. It translates to the Wolverine. And the next day, Logan finds her dead by Victor's claws, a way for Victor to get Logan's attention. Logan finds his brother, but loses the fight and ends up back in Stryker's custody. At the promise of revenge, Logan agrees to work with him, and Stryker will give him the tool he needs to win round 2 with Victor. That thing they were looking for in Africa, adamantium. Stryker found it, and through a risky procedure, he can bond it to Logan's skeleton, making him strong enough to withstand virtually anything. Of course, anesthesia does not work due to Logan's mutation, so he'll have to endure more pain than any normal man ever could. And he does. Before the procedure, Logan asks for some new dog tags. He wants them to say, Wolverine. The procedure nearly kills him, but it doesn't. It works. Stryker calls the resulting creation Weapon X. Then he gives the order to have Logan's memories erased. Wolverine does not take kindly to that and kills his way out of the lab. On the run, he ends up in the care of an elderly couple on a farm. When Agent Zero is sent to erase Stryker's mistake by killing Weapon X, that couple pays with their lives for their kindness, and Logan returns Zero the favor, along with everyone else Stryker sent after him. With his new life dead alongside Kayla, he goes in search of the only thing left for him, revenge, which means finding Victor. He starts with a couple of his old friends from Stryker's team, John Wraith, the teleporting man, and Fred Dukes, the one with super strength, and now a bit more heft after years of a particular coping mechanism. Both left the team because things got worse after Logan quit. Stryker had them rounding up mutants so he could bring them to an island prison for experiments. What's more, Victor still works for him. The whole thing was a setup. Stryker had Victor kill Kayla so Logan would agree to have the adamantium procedure done in pursuit of revenge. Stryker killed her for an experiment. Dukes doesn't know where to find the island, but he knows someone who does, someone who escaped from the prison, Remy LeBeau, a mutant who can energize any object, turning it into an explosive projectile. The guards gave him the name Gambit because he kept taking their money at poker. Rafe insists on joining Logan when they search out Gambit. They find him at a bar in New Orleans, and so does Victor. He quickly teaches Rafe the cost of helping Logan. Like everyone else, it gets you killed. Logan loses another friend, but Gambit does agree to take him to the lab on 3 Mile Island, hidden by the nuclear plant. There are some trust issues at first, but Gambit quickly realizes he and Logan have the same enemy. At the island, General Munson tries to shut Stryker down after learning his past. Apparently, Stryker's crusade against mutants is personal. His son Jason was one of them, with the ability to create mental illusions. Stryker had him sent to Xavier's school in hopes he'd be cured. When he found out Xavier wasn't trying to cure him, but was instead teaching him to embrace his powers, Stryker pulled him out of the school. After that, the boy resented both his parents and used his abilities to torture them with visions in their brains. His mother ended up taking a power drill to her left temple. Now Stryker keeps the boy frozen in the lab. Clearly, this whole crusade is too personal. Stryker is too close to this. But when Munson tries to pull him off the project, Stryker kills him. When Logan arrives, he too confronts Stryker, who reveals Kayla is alive. She is a mutant with tacto-hypnosis, the ability to hypnotize anyone she touches. A useful tool in seduction, all part of the plan. Give Logan someone to love, take her away, and fuel his revenge with adamantium. Her death was fake, a mix of artificial blood and an injection to slow her heart rate. And she had to go along because Stryker has her sister Emma imprisoned, a girl with diamond skin. Seducing Logan and faking her death was the price of her sister's freedom. Logan leaves and Stryker lets him. Victor can't believe it. He wants Logan dead. He attacks Kayla and her screams bring Logan back. He fights Victor and this time wins. He gets his claws at Victor's throat until Kayla begs him to stop. She tells Logan that he is not an animal. She tells him that their love was real. Logan spares his brother's life, then joins Kayla in freeing the prisoners, including her sister and a young Scott Summers, whose optic blast will one day earn him the name Cyclops. To stop Wolverine, Stryker activates Weapon 11, Deadpool, the result of his experiments. He's been extracting powers from all his captured mutants and dumping them into a mind-controlled Wade Wilson, the now disfigured mutant with retractable swords, an assortment of abilities, and a mouth sewn shut.
Stryker finally figured out how to shut you up.
Attacks Logan. He nearly beats him until Victor intervenes. No one gets to kill Logan but him. Together, they overcome Deadpool's regenerative abilities by cutting off his head, just as he was firing an optical blast, courtesy of Scott Summers' powers. The laser destroys the nuclear plant. Elsewhere on the island, the prisoners are met by Charles Xavier, who has come here to rescue them and bring them back to his school to keep them safe. But Kayla is not with them. She stayed behind, slowed by a bullet wound, and with the battle against Weapon 11 won, Victor and Logan part ways. Though Victor assures they are not finished, Logan finds the wounded Kayla and picks her up to bring her to safety, until Stryker shoots him in the back with the only thing strong enough to stop him, adamantium bullets. He puts 2 in his back, 1 in his chest, and a couple more in his skull. But he is finished when Kayla grabs his leg and gives Stryker a hypnotic order: walk until your feet bleed, then keep walking. He leaves, and once he is gone, the brain matter in Logan's skull repairs itself, but the memories it once contained are gone. He wakes up unsure of where he is or who he is. There is a dead woman nearby. He doesn't know her, but out of respect, he closes her eyes. And he runs from the approaching authorities. In the aftermath, Stryker is picked up for questioning in the death of General Munson, and Deadpool wakes up apparently impervious even to decapitation. Soon, Xavier brings another student to his school, Jean Grey. He and Magneto visit her at her home and witness just a glimpse of her power. She is a telepath like Xavier, but much more powerful. And dangerous too, he soon learns, because her power is seated in the unconscious part of her mind. To protect her and those around her, Xavier creates a series of psychic barriers to isolate that power from her conscious mind. As a result, she develops a dual personality. Jean, whose powers are subdued and in control, then a dormant side, a personality that comes to call itself the Phoenix, a purely instinctual creature, all desire, joy, and rage. Around the turn of the millennium, tensions between Homo sapiens and Homo superiors reach a fever pitch. Senator Robert Kelly pushes for the Mutant Registration Act, something which would require all mutants to expose themselves. They would no longer be allowed to blend into human society, even those without outward-presenting mutations. Despite this, Xavier continues fighting for mutant rights within the confines of the law, with fellow telepath Jean Grey at his side. Magneto, still joined by Mystique, continues fighting the war in his own way, not to coexist with humanity, but for mutant superiority. Though Xavier is a powerful telepath, Magneto's helmet makes him immune to his power. As the war goes on, new mutants discover their powers daily, suddenly thrusting them into a strange world, alienated from friends and family, including high school student Marie, who goes by the name Rogue. Her first kiss sends her boyfriend into a coma for 3 weeks, teaching her a dangerous lesson. When she makes physical contact with anyone, she drains their life force. A touch too long would be deadly. She goes on the run and happens to find another mutant, brawling in a bar cage match, Logan, aka the Wolverine. She sneaks aboard his pickup truck and he reluctantly lets her join him on the road, until they're attacked by Victor Creed, who now goes by Sabretooth and fights under Magneto. To Wolverine, with his regenerated brain matter, Sabretooth is a stranger, one somehow capable of beating him in a fight. Wolverine gets knocked out, but 2 X-Men come to the rescue, Cyclops and Storm. They bring Rogue and Wolverine back to Westchester, to Xavier's school for medical attention. Rogue fits right in, befriending Bobby, a boy with the power to generate ice, while Logan, always the lone wolf, shows little interest in joining a team. But Xavier convinces him to stay with a promise. Magneto seems to have taken an interest in Logan, enough to send Sabretooth after him. If Logan gives Xavier 48 hours to figure out why, Xavier will help Logan discover his origins and all the things lost from his memory. Logan agrees to stay, though it isn't just Xavier's deal that keeps him there, but also perhaps Jean Grey. As the team's doctor, she takes care of Logan, and he quickly takes a liking to her. Only problem is that she's dating Cyclops, and it's not surprising that the Wolverine and Cyclops don't get along after that. That night, Rogue checks in on the sleeping Logan, thrashing in his bed, haunted by fragmented memories and nightmares. She wakes him, and in his agitated state, he puts his claws through her. It would be certain death. Except it turns out that touching mutants lets her borrow their powers. Wolverine's healing factor saves her life. The next day, Mystique takes the form of Rogue's new friend, Bobby, and through his lips tells her to leave the academy because Xavier is furious with her for using her ability on another X-Men. All lies, of course, but seemingly coming from Bobby, Rogue believes it and runs away. Once they realize she's missing, Xavier quickly locates her with Cerebro. Logan catches up with her and convinces her to come back. But it's too late. Magneto shows up, and given the metal on Logan's bones, he is easily subdued by the villain. And it turns out, Wolverine is not the one Magneto was after. It's Rogue he's looking for, and now he has her. At the mansion, Mystique continues her meddling, sneaking a toxin into Cerebro. and soon a visitor arrives, which brings clarity to Magneto's plans. Senator Kelly. He was kidnapped by Magneto's mutants, then subjected to an experiment which turned him into a mutant. His new powers made him elastic, allowing him to escape their prison. Reading his memories tells Xavier more. The machine works by draining power from Magneto to release its mutating radiation. Why does he need Rogue? Cyclops and Wolverine figure it out. Using the machine on a large scale would kill Magneto, but Rogue can steal powers. If Magneto lets her take his powers, they can feed her to the machine instead of Magneto, and she would die in his place. And she is not the only one who will die. It seems the radiation is unstable. Yes, it mutated Senator Kelly, but soon it kills him too. Xavier rushes to Cerebro to find Rogue, but Mystique snuck those toxins in there. They send him into a coma. They clean out the machine, and Jean uses it instead and finds Rogue. They're taking her to the Statue of Liberty. It all makes sense. The UN is holding a summit on Ellis Island. Magneto is planning to turn on the machine and transform the world leaders into mutants. Though he has no idea what happened to Kelly after he escaped, this machine won't just mutate those leaders. It'll likely kill every human in New York City. They quickly suit up and board the X-Jet, though Wolverine is disappointed in the all-black leather.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
They fight their way through Magneto's mutants, including Mystique and Toad.
Do you know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? The same thing that happens to everything else.
But as they near the machine, Magneto wraps them all in metal and points Logan's claws at his own chest, though he's underestimated the Wolverine's tolerance for pain. Once Magneto joins Rogue in the machine, Wolverine extends his claws through his own chest to break free of the restraints. Then Sabretooth is waiting for him. As they fight, Magneto lets Rogue take his power, and they activate the machine. With the help of Cyclops' optic blast, Wolverine takes out Sabretooth, then gets a lift from Jean and Storm's combined powers to reach the machine. He tries to shut it down, but though Magneto is weakened after having his power drained, he's strong enough to push against the metal on Logan's bones. But at precisely the right moment, Cyclops times another blast to hit Magneto, giving Wolverine the chance he needs to destroy the machine. The radiation is stopped, and the day is saved. But Rogue is out cold. Until Wolverine lends his powers once again. It puts him back in the infirmary, but also saves Rogue's life. Finally, Xavier wakes up and delivers on his promise to Logan. He tells him about an abandoned military compound at Alkali Lake in the Canadian Rockies, near where they found him. He might find some answers there. Rogue stops him on the way out. She's gonna miss him. Logan leaves his dog tags with her, promising he'll come back for them. Then he leaves on Scott Summers' motorcycle. As for Magneto, he gets tossed in a plastic prison, immune to his magnetic fields. Xavier visits him for a game of chess, and another discussion of their diametrically opposed philosophies. Xavier will not give up on his dream of peaceful coexistence with humans, nor will Magneto give up on his of mutant domination. And now he has a secret weapon. With Senator Kelly dead, Mystique has taken his place, giving them a mutant on the inside. Soon, Magneto needs her help more than ever. In all the time since creating his Weapon X, Stryker has not let go of his hate for mutants. Though he has found a way to make them useful, he recently defrosted his son and cut out a chunk of his brain to render him docile. Further, his son's power allowed him to create mental illusions to control people's behavior. Now, by extracting the fluid secreted by his brain, Stryker has created a mind-controlling agent. He's used it to create an obedient bodyguard in Yuriko, a mutant just like Wolverine, though her adamantium claws sprout from her fingers. And he's been using the mind control substance on Magneto to learn more about the X-Men. He finds out about Cerebro, a machine that, when combined with Xavier's telepathy, can locate every mutant on Earth, and with the right push, kill them too. All he needs is to get into Xavier's compound and strip the machine for parts to build his own. To do that, he needs to escalate tensions with mutants, so the president will authorize a raid on their school. That's where, once again, the mind control substance comes in handy. He uses it on a teleporting mutant named Kurt Wagner, who went by Nightcrawler in his circus days, and sends him on a mission to assassinate the president. Nightcrawler is stopped, but the near miss is alarming enough. It's all the ammo Stryker needed. The president authorizes him to lead a raid on Xavier's school for gifted youngsters, a place Stryker now knows is more than a school. It's a training compound for mutants. And at that compound, a disappointed Wolverine returns home after searching that abandoned military complex in Alkali Lake. He didn't find anything there. But now, he has a more pressing mission: babysitting the X-Men. Xavier is leaving with Summers to visit Magneto in prison to see if he had anything to do with the assassination attempt on the president, while Storm and Jean are heading after Nightcrawler. That leaves Wolverine as the only adult around. And that night, Stryker's team make their move. Wolverine puts plenty of them in body bags and comes face to face with Stryker himself. Of course, Wolverine does not remember him, but Stryker makes it clear they have a shared past. The mystery will have to wait. For now, Bobby and Rogue need his help getting out of the mansion alive. Through an underground tunnel, most of the X-Men make it out, but a few children are captured. And Stryker gets what he came here for, the parts he needs to build his own Cerebro. Once they're outside, Logan, Bobby, Rogue, and John, a mutant with control over fire, head toward Jean and Storm in Boston, where Bobby's parents happen to live. So they hold up there for now, and Bobby comes out to his parents, revealing his mutant capabilities. They make a feeble attempt at understanding. Bobby's younger brother, on the other hand, doesn't. He calls the police on them. They're quickly surrounded, and under that pressure, John shows he might be a better fit for Magneto's team, attacking the cops with fire. Rogue quickly borrows his powers to put them out. Afterward, Storm, Jean, and Nightcrawler arrive on the X-Jet. After figuring out the teleporting mutant was forced into the assassination plot, they recruited him to their cause. Once they're in the air, he proves a useful team member. Their jet is attacked by the Air Force. Jean deflects one missile, but the other hits, flinging Rogue out of the jet. But Nightcrawler quickly teleports out and back in to rescue her. The jet nearly crashes until someone catches them. Magneto. He was able to break out of prison with Mystique's help, but not before Xavier and Cyclops were captured. Not long after stepping into the prison, Stryker had them knocked out by noxious gas. Magneto is unsure what happened to them after that, but he fills them in on what happened to him. He tells them about Stryker's mind control substance, how he's building his own Cerebro, how if he sticks Xavier in it and makes him concentrate hard enough, he could have him kill every mutant on the planet. They have to find Stryker's base containing the new Cerebro and stop him, but where could it be? Thankfully, someone among them has been there. Nightcrawler, when Stryker kidnapped him for the assassination plot. Jean reads his mind and finds the base at Alkali Lake. Wolverine didn't find anything there earlier because the base is underground. In the morning, they'll go there. Before heading to bed, Jean and Logan share a quiet moment where they comfort each other. And they kiss, but she quickly breaks it off. Scott Summers, Cyclops, is the one she loves. The next day, they head to the base. On their way, John tells Magneto his chosen name, Pyro, and in the older, militant mutant, he finds a mentor. Once they're underground, the team splits up. Logan heads after Stryker himself. Storm and Nightcrawler head for the imprisoned children, while Jean, Mystique, and Magneto head to the new Cerebro, where Stryker's son has Xavier under a spell that will soon have him telepathically link with all mutants worldwide. On their way, they find Cyclops under a spell, mind control to fight them. Jean deals with him while Mystique and Magneto continue on toward Cerebro. In her fight with Cyclops, they cause some collateral damage, including to a nearby dam. It'll soon rupture and flood the facility, but Cyclops is freed from his spell. Wolverine finds the room where his procedure was done years earlier, and he faces off against Yuriko, Lady Deathstrike. It's a close fight until Wolverine uses Stryker's pool of adamantium to kill her, filling her with so much of the metal it pours out of her eyes. Soon it happens. Every mutant around the world feels it in their skulls. They are dying, until Magneto rips the door off Cerebro and stops it. For mutants, the day is saved. For humans, it's another story. Magneto cannot walk away from the opportunity before him. He has Mystique give Stryker's son a new order for Xavier. Stop concentrating on mutants. Focus instead on humans and kill them all. With the plan set in motion, Magneto and Mystique leave. Pyro comes with them. Outside, Wolverine gets a hold of the real Stryker. He stabs him and he gets some answers. Vague references to work they once did together, how Logan volunteered for the procedure which covered his bones and metal. But with the dam soon rupturing, they have little time to chat. Wolverine heads back inside. Nightcrawler and Storm teleport into Cerebro and stop Xavier, finally freeing him from Jason's control. And as the building floods, Wolverine shows them a way out, where he finds Stryker chained to the dam, Magneto's doing, and Wolverine leaves him there to drown in the impending flood. Before it comes, Rogue and Bobby bring in the X-Jet. The X-Men board, and a malfunction prevents them taking off. They will all soon be killed in the flood, until Jean leaves the jet. In her greatest show of power yet, she stops the water while giving their jet a boost. As her power is unleashed, energy glows around her, until she is overtaken by the water. She is gone, but her sacrifice saved them all. And finally, in an attempt to ease tensions between humans and mutants, the X-Men pay the President a visit and leave him with Stryker's private files, proving the sick and twisted things he did to provoke the war with mutant kind. And Xavier makes it clear, mutants are here to stay. The President can repeat the mistakes of the past, or work together with them for a better future. The temperature of the country is turned down after that, for a time, but soon something sends shockwaves through the mutant community. A cure has been developed, a treatment that suppresses the right genes to turn mutants human. Some, like Rogue, who cannot make physical contact with her own boyfriend Bobby, welcome the choice. Others, like Magneto, are certain it will not be a choice. It will be forced upon them. He gathers like-minded mutants to fight with him, including Callisto, who is gifted with super speed and the ability to detect nearby mutants, something Magneto could use, because Mystique got picked up by the authorities and he'd like to find her. Hank McCoy, now the Department of Mutant Affairs Secretary, meets Jimmy. He is the source of the cure, a mutant whose ability automatically disables nearby mutations, giving Hank a glimpse of his own human hand for the first time in years. But Hank soon resigns from his government work and exclusively supports the X-Men. Once he finds out the supposed cure has been used as a weapon, it happens when Magneto finds Mystique. He and Callisto free her and a couple other mutants who join their cause, including Juggernaut. But as they escape, one of the guards shoots Mystique with needles containing that cure, and it makes her human, which means she is no longer one of them. Magneto leaves her behind. And while this cure is the center of the mutant world, Scott Summers' mind is elsewhere. Logan has done his best to move on from the loss of Jean Grey, but for Scott, it isn't that easy, especially when he keeps hearing her whisper. Soon it becomes more than a whisper. At Alkali Lake, he actually sees her standing there, and she kisses him, but Scott has no idea he is kissing the Phoenix. The X-Men feel a ripple as Cyclops dies. Logan and Storm rush to the lake. They find Jean unconscious, but no sign of Scott. At the mansion, Xavier tells Logan the truth about Jean's power, his psychic barriers, and the Phoenix. That's what saved her. She should have been obliterated in the flood, but the Phoenix must have wrapped her in a cocoon of telekinetic energy. Logan witnesses her dual personality firsthand later when she wakes up and loses control. The mansion shakes. In a moment of lucidity, where Jean returns to the surface in place of the Phoenix, she remembers killing Scott and fears he will not be the last. She manages to get out 2 words to Logan: "Kill me." Then the Phoenix takes over and escapes. They go looking for her at her childhood home, and it seems Magneto had the same idea after Callisto detected the powerful mutant. Just like 20 years ago, Charles and Eric enter the house, but this time they offer Jean 2 different paths. Xavier offers help, while Magneto insists there's nothing wrong with her to begin with. The X-Men and Magneto's Brotherhood waiting outside move to intervene once the house shakes. Wolverine gets to the Phoenix just in time to watch her vaporize the Professor. Before his body is torn apart, Xavier manages a few pleading words that he hopes reach Jean. Don't let it control you. The X-Men grieve at their mansion, while the Phoenix accompanies Magneto back to his camp. And with this powerful weapon at his side, it is soon time to wage their battle. They will march on Alcatraz Island, where the source of the cure is kept. They will get to the boy, Jimmy, and kill him. At the mansion, it seems Xavier's dream is dead. Without him, there is no school. But the X-Men's resignation ends when they see a mutant in need. Warren Worthington. His father is the one who developed the cure. He's always had a problem with mutants, something Warren knew well. As a child, when his mutation grew wings on his back, he knew so well how his father would look at him, he tried to cut them off. And now, when his father tried to force the cure on him, Warren fled and made his way to the mansion looking for help. Storm cannot turn him away. The school will remain open, and the X-Men will keep fighting for Xavier's dream. Without him and without Cyclops, they are outnumbered. But when Magneto brings his mutants onto the Golden Gate Bridge and lifts it to Alcatraz, the X-Men are there to stop him. They will not let him kill the boy. While they fight, Juggernaut heads straight for him. As he crashes through walls, Kitty Pryde runs through them with her phasing ability. She uses that same ability to hold on to Juggernaut, phase into the floor, and leave him stuck there. But she has no idea who she's dealing with.
Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
He breaks out of the floor, but knocks himself unconscious when he runs into a wall near Jimmy, the mutant who disables nearby abilities. Outside, Magneto's forces overwhelm the X-Men and the military forces despite their plastic guns immune from magnetic fields. When Wolverine goes after Magneto directly, it ends the same way it always does. The adamantium on his bones make him an easy target for Magneto. But this time, Wolverine is just a distraction, giving Beast a chance to plunge some needles into Magneto. Seconds later, Magneto becomes what he's spent decades resenting: human. The boy is saved. Magneto is stopped. It's over, Logan tells Jean. For a moment, it seems they might be able to bring her back. But when the soldiers fire on her, the Phoenix rises. She vaporizes them. She tears the island apart. The X-Men and Magneto's Brotherhood evacuate the island. Only Wolverine stays behind. His healing factor makes him the only one who stands a chance against her. He fights through the telekinetic force pushing him away. He gets close. The Phoenix scoffs at him. "You would die for them?" "No, not for them," Logan answers. "For you." Now Jean speaks. "Save me," she begs him. Logan tells her that he loves her. That's the last thing she hears before he plunges his claws into her. She dies, and this time it seems there will be no coming back. Back at the school, Bobby and Rogue hold hands for the first time. It seems she did take that cure. Eric sits at a chessboard alone. He places his hand near a metal chess piece, and ever so slightly, it moves. As for his old friend Charles Xavier, his body might have been destroyed, but his mind is another story. His friend Moira McTaggart once told him of a strange case, a man born with no higher-level brain functions, no consciousness to speak of, until now. In the moment before death, Xavier transferred his own mind into this body, and now he lives. But not all is well. After killing the woman he loves, Logan hides from the world. He lives in the wilderness, without purpose or meaning, tortured nightly by visions of Jean, visions of hurting her, killing her. One day, he's dragged back into the world by a stranger, Yukio, a mutant who has visions of when and how a person will die. She's been looking for Logan for over a year. Her employer, Master Yashida, the man Logan saved at Nagasaki all those years ago, is dying. He would like to see his savior one more time, to thank him and say goodbye. But in Tokyo, Logan quickly finds out there's more to the story. In the years since Logan saved his life, Yashida has become a rich and powerful man. He does not want to die, yet he suspects that Logan does. Logan has become a Ronin, a samurai without a master, a man cursed with eternity, who has lived long enough to run out of things to live for. Yashida makes a proposal. He knows a way to transfer Logan's healing factor to himself. It would turn Logan mortal, and he could live the rest of his days as a man, and Yashida would live. Logan turns him down, and assures, "You don't want what I've got." That night, he dreams of Jean like always, but he's woken up by Yashida's oncologist, Dr. Green. She seems to kiss Logan and put something in his body. He has little time to contemplate it because there is a commotion. Yashida has died. At the funeral, Logan gets an idea of what the doctor did to him, because the Yakuza attack, seemingly after Mariko, Yashida's granddaughter. He and Yukio protect her, and as Logan fights, he realizes that his wounds are not healing. Somehow, his healing factor has been stolen or subdued. Mariko escapes, and Logan, still bleeding from the fight, follows her onto a bullet train. She's heading to a family home in the south to hide out, but soon they are attacked again, forcing the wounded Logan to fight on top of a bullet train. Once he fights them off, they get off the train and find a hotel to hide in. That's when blood loss finally catches up with him. He wakes up on a table under the care of a veterinarian student, the closest thing Mariko could find to a doctor in the hotel. At Mariko's home, Logan learns a little more about her. There was an archer at the funeral who also protected her. That's Harada, an old boyfriend, someone she intended to marry, until her grandfather instead arranged for her to marry Noburo, the Minister of Justice, someone who would give them political advantage. And Logan learns that in 3 days, when they read her grandfather's will, she will become a very powerful woman, because he left her everything. That night, she and Logan are a comfort to each other. They kiss, and they share a bed. In his dreams, Jean reminds him that everyone he loves dies. This is not going to end well. As though on cue, the next morning, the Yakuza return and take her. Logan gets his hands on one of the men and hurts him until he provides a name, the one who arranged this kidnapping, Noburo, her fiancé. Yukio finds Logan, and he has her take him to Noburo. He beats some answers out of him, too. In the years leading up to his death, Yashida became obsessed with prolonging his life. He nearly bankrupted the company in pursuit of immortality. His son Shingen covered for him, thinking he'd be rewarded in the end. But when he found out the family fortune was going to his daughter Mariko instead, he had to kill her. Noburo, her fiancé and Japan's Minister of Justice, agreed to help in exchange for a share of that fortune. So Logan and Yukio head back to Yashida's home to look for his son Shingen, the one behind all this. But instead, they find a bloody message pinned to one of their guards' bodies. "Come and get her," and it's written next to an image of one of Yashida's research centers. Before they go, Logan takes a spin in Yashida's medical chair. He finds a mechanical parasite on his heart. That must be what the doctor put in him that's suppressing his healing factor. He cuts himself open to pull it out. That's when Shingen shows up. Yukio holds him off while Logan rips the thing out of himself, and soon his healing factor returns. After that, in a fight between Shingen's sword against his claws and healing, Logan wins. He decides to spare the man, instead leaving him with a curse. "You tried to kill your daughter. Live with that." But Shingen forces his hand, and the Wolverine kills him. Of course, he and Yukio know that the message inviting them to the facility is a trap. They go anyway. Waiting for them is a fight against the Black Clan, ninjas who have been in Yashida's family for centuries, Yashida's doctor, who turns out to be a mutant who calls herself Viper for her poison-based abilities, and Haruda, Mariko's old boyfriend, the Archer, who is working with Viper. Though, with the woman he loves in the fight, Haruda soon reconsiders and turns against his employers. That gets him killed by perhaps the most formidable enemy of all in this fight, a large adamantium samurai, armed with a sword capable of cutting adamantium. That's how the Wolverine loses his claws. The metal samurai grabs the declawed Wolverine, then takes off its mask to reveal who's inside. Yashida, apparently alive all this time. This armor was built to keep him alive a little longer, and it has the ability to steal Logan's healing factor. That's why he had his granddaughter Mariko brought here. He knew it would bait Logan into coming. He begins the process. Logan rapidly ages as Yashida gets younger, until Mariko grabs Logan's severed adamantium claws and stabs them into her grandfather. Once Logan's bone claws grow back, he finishes the job, killing Yashida. Then Logan collapses, and another vision of Jean. She asks him to stay, but Logan will not. He has decided he wants to live after all, and he has decided to forgive himself, finally telling his vision of Jean that he didn't have a choice. She was hurting people. He had to do it. He tells her that he loves her. He always will. She smiles and leaves, to haunt him no longer. Once he's awake, Mariko asks him to stay, but Logan tells her no. He is a soldier, and he's been hiding too long. And 2 years later, a fight arrives. Magneto and a miraculously living Xavier find him at an airport to tell him that they need his help. Humans are building a weapon that may soon bring about the end of their kind. It all goes back to 1973 and the experiments on Mystique after she assassinated Trask. It took a few decades, but with her DNA, they've unlocked the secrets of transformation, and now they are building weapons that can transform, adapt to whatever mutant they are fighting. By 2023, those weapons, the Sentinels, have turned the world into a nightmare. Mutants slaughtered. Humans with genetics that may predispose them to bear mutant children or grandchildren slaughtered. The same for people who dare to help them, leaving only the worst of mankind alive. Now, in this desolate dystopia, few mutants remain, and those who do survive only by running, because standing up to those Sentinels, machines adapted to exploit any mutant's greatest weaknesses, is certain death. One group of mutants, with Kitty Pryde's help, use a clever but dangerous strategy. Over the years, she has developed the ability to send a person's consciousness back in time, to their younger body. Whenever they're attacked, she sends Bishop back. He wakes up a few days earlier, warns them of the impending attack, and they run before it comes. When they meet with Storm, Wolverine, Magneto, and Xavier, the professor wonders if she could send him back to 1973 to stop Mystique from killing Trask, stop this war before it even begins. But Pryde can't. She can send someone back a couple weeks at most, but the mind can only stretch so far before it snaps. Sending a person back decades would rip them apart. And so, Wolverine knows it has to be him, the only one who can heal as fast as he's ripped apart. Pride tells him how it'll work. He will fall asleep in the present and wake up in his younger body. Once he wakes up back in the present, it'll be done. Whatever he's left behind in the past will become history. It'll be the only history the rest of them know, and Wolverine will be the only one who remembers how things were before he changed them. And they tell him what he'll need to do. Stopping Mystique will mean convincing Charles and Eric to work together. She'll need both their voices to convince her not to go through with it. Charles, who inadvertently pushed her away over the years, and Eric, who led her down a dark path. Logan wakes up in a body 50 years younger and makes his way to what should be Xavier's school for gifted youngsters. Instead, he finds an almost empty mansion where only Charles and Hank remain, and Charles is at his lowest point. After losing Eric, Raven, and his legs, the Vietnam War took everything else. Many of the teachers and older students were drafted. To offer whatever help he could, Hank designed him a serum that lets him walk, but also takes his powers away. Logan convinces Charles that he really does know him in the future by sharing details of Charles' past that no one else could know, details Charles will one day share with him when they're friends. But still, he refuses to be a part of this, telling Logan the same thing Logan told him 10 years ago when he tried to recruit him.
Fuck off.
But Charles thinks of Raven. If there's hope of bringing her back, he has to do this. But they need Magneto, currently sitting 100 floors under the Pentagon, imprisoned for JFK's assassination. Luckily, Logan knows a mutant who can get into anywhere, Peter Maximoff, who has such super speed he could easily be mistaken for a teleporter. He also happens to be Eric's son, something Eric himself is unaware of.
They told me you control metal. My mom once knew a guy who could do that.
They get him out and explain the situation. They get to Mystique just in time to stop her pulling the trigger on Trask. But Eric has something else in mind. Now that he knows the danger of Mystique's DNA and how it can be weaponized against them, she has to be put down. A sacrifice to protect all mutant kind. She escapes out a window and the X-Men fight. Publicly, the world sees Mystique and Beast. The two blue creatures become the public's introduction to mutants, and it sets them back on the same dark path as before. The public is now scared of mutants. President Nixon wants to show the government can protect them, so he authorizes Trask's Sentinel program. Back at the mansion, Charles collapses. His legs are going again, which means the voices in his head are coming back. Hank gets him another dose, but Logan tells Charles that they need him. They need the real him. Charles refuses the treatment. He gets in Cerebro to find Raven, but he loses control. This power needs not only a clear mind, but a strong heart too, and his is broken. Helping people like this, who need to hear the right words, has never been Logan's strong suit. But it has been Charles. He tells the young man to look into his mind, and through Logan, Charles reaches the future. He speaks with his older self, his wiser self. Xavier tells him about pain. With Cerebro, he feels so much of it, from all the people it connects him to. He's afraid of it, but really, he's afraid of his own pain. But he has to allow himself to feel it, to embrace it. That will make him powerful. It's their greatest gift of all, to bear their pain without breaking. And it's born from the most human power, hope. They turn Cerebro back on, and Charles finds Raven. He begs her to come home. Do not become a killer. But her mind will not be changed. She is heading to D.C., where there is to be a demonstration at the White House of Trask's new Sentinel technology. That's where she'll kill him. In D.C., the day of the event, Charles stops Raven with his mind, but Eric has other plans anyway, and he's grabbed Shaw's old telepath-proof helmet, so Charles can't stop him. Before the demonstration, Magneto modified the Sentinels to take control of them. Now, he drops a stadium around the White House to trap everyone inside, while the Sentinels stand guard. The X-Men fight, but he overwhelms them. Even Wolverine, who has no metal inside him yet, succumbs when Magneto borrows some metal and sticks it through him, then sends Logan to the bottom of the Potomac River. Magneto announces to the world that while today was meant to demonstrate humanity's power, instead he will give them a glimpse of the devastation his race can unleash upon theirs. He will kill Nixon and the other officials around him as a warning to humans: stay out of our way. And to mutants, his message is this: do not live in the shadows any longer. Come out of hiding and fight in a brotherhood of our kind. This new history will soon take hold, because in the future, the Sentinels descend upon them. Magneto falls, Iceman too. Soon they will all be dead. Before Magneto pulls the triggers, Mystique poses as the president to get close, then takes Eric down and removes his helmet. But there's still Trask. Before she kills him, Charles pleads one more time in her mind. She just saved the lives of the men Magneto was going to take. Right now, the world looks at her and does not see an enemy. This is a chance to show them a better path. Charles will not try to control her anymore. The choice is in her hands. But he has faith. Raven does not kill Trask. The world sees that not all mutants are to be feared. Logan wakes up 50 years later at Xavier's school for gifted youngsters. It's a bright future, one that's erased his greatest regret. Jean Grey is alive, and she's dating Scott Summers. It is just as Kitty Pryde said it would be. No one remembers the old, dark future except Logan, and Logan himself doesn't know the last 50 years. He finds Xavier. The two have a lot of catching up to do, because since 1973, there is now a new timeline, replacing all that came before. Back in the 1973 of this new timeline, after sparing Trask's life and preventing a mutant apocalypse, Mystique, in the guise of William Stryker, fishes Wolverine out of the Potomac River. 2 years later, Charles Xavier unknowingly repeats the same mistake as his predecessor from the old timeline. He meets an 8-year-old Jean Grey and puts scaffolding in her mind, psychic barriers to prevent her incredible powers getting loose. And he protects her from pain, the pain of remembering what happened the first time she lost control. The car went off the road and killed her mother. Her father survived, but any love for his daughter did not. Xavier protects her from this too, with a lie, telling her that both her parents died. Over the next few years, the world is changed irrevocably by the revelation of mutants. Some see them as a second coming or sign from God. One group in particular discovered En Sabah, perhaps the first mutant, that's been asleep since 3600 BC. They find him, and they wake him up. It sends tremors around the world. At a factory in Poland, it causes a large piece of equipment to fall. It would crush one of the workers, except they don't know that hiding among them is the fugitive Eric Lenscher. After 73, he went into hiding. He started a new, quiet life as Henrik Gursky. He even has a wife and daughter. But when he uses his powers to catch the equipment and save that man's life, it isn't long before the authorities find him. To protect his family, he's willing to go quietly. But his daughter is a mutant too, and doesn't have control over her powers yet. The cops panic. His wife and daughter are both dead in seconds. And seconds after that, so are the cops, as Magneto takes swift revenge. The X-Men feel the tremors too, and when Xavier uses Cerebro to investigate,
Welcome, Professor.
he finds Moira McTaggart near the epicenter, someone he still has feelings for, though they haven't seen each other in 20 years, and he erased all her memories of him. They visit her at the CIA and use Charles' powers to convince her they have level 5 clearance. She shares everything she knows. The cult of En Sabah, how he's transferred his consciousness to new bodies over the years, amassing more and more powers, and stories of how he always picks 4 disciples, imbuing them with their own power, like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Maybe he got it from the Bible, or maybe the Bible got it from him. Whenever he ruled, things ended in cataclysm, some kind of apocalypse. And Sabanur finds his first disciple in Aurora, a young storm, and by absorbing television signals, he learns the state of the world. He decides it's lost its way, time to cleanse it and start fresh. He amplifies Storm's abilities, and she takes him to find more disciples. They recruit Psylocke, who can create psionic energy-based weapons, Angel, who can fly, and with En Sabanur's help, throw projectiles too. And finally, he recruits Magneto. He brings him to Auschwitz, reminding him of the atrocities against him and his family. Already vengeful, of course Eric joins the cause. It's time to set the world ablaze and start a better one. En Sabanur shows him his true potential. He tells Magneto to feel all the metal in the earth itself. He can do so much more than he realizes. When Mystique hears about Eric's loss, she comes back to the mansion for the first time in years. She brings Nightcrawler, who she recently met. He meets a couple of other mutants who have joined since Raven's time, Jean Grey, and Havoc's younger brother, Scott Summers. Scott and Jean relate over their lack of control over their abilities, planting seeds for a romance between them. Hank takes Raven underground, where he shows her the X-Jet he's built. Charles wants students, not soldiers, but Hank thinks they should be prepared just in case. Finally, she meets with Charles. Magneto has resurfaced. The whole world will be looking for him. They should find him first. Charles looks for him with Cerebro. When they connect, En Sabanur feels Xavier's presence and his power. The villain takes control of Xavier, and through Cerebro, he connects to the world's leaders, forcing them to launch all their nukes into space, disarming the world of its most powerful weapons. Before he can do more,
Wreak havoc.
Havoc quickly destroys Cerebro and severs the connection. And a new plan forms. En Sabanur has amassed many powers over the years, but never the extraordinary telepathic abilities of someone like Charles Xavier. With those powers, he could truly control the world and every being in it. He will capture Xavier and transfer his consciousness into him. He and his 4 horsemen visit the mansion and grab him. Havoc fires, but they disappear, and his plasma blast strikes one of Hank's bombs. The mansion explodes. Thankfully, that's right around the time Peter Maximoff arrives. He decided to come after seeing the reemergence of Magneto, his father. Peter rescues everyone he can, but Havoc, Alex Summers, was too close to the blast. He doesn't make it out. Scott, who was playing hooky with Nightcrawler and Jean to see Return of the Jedi, returns to find the wreckage and learn that his brother is dead. He has little time to mourn, as moments later, William Stryker and his men are at the school. The psychic event which destroyed every nuke on Earth emanated from here. So Stryker takes Mystique, Maximoff, Hank, and Moira for questioning. Jean uses her psychic abilities to hide her, Cyclops, and Nightcrawler so they can follow covertly. Mystique and the others are tossed in a cell at Stryker's facility, when suddenly, every human on Earth hears a voice in their head. En Sabanur has amplified Xavier's power to reach them all at once without Cerebro, and he uses the global telepathic link to share a message with the world, to tell them it'll soon end so he can build a better one. But in private, Xavier shares a hidden message with Jean. "We are in Cairo. Come find us." Soon, Jean, Cyclops, and Nightcrawler break their friends out of Stryker's facility with help from a monster in Stryker's possession. Weapon X, the beast who used to be Logan. They break him out of a cell, and he goes on a rampage through the facility. Once he's done killing, Jean uses her power to give him back some lost memories, setting him on a path to rediscover his humanity. He wordlessly runs out of the facility. As the rest of them escape, Magneto begins the process. His magnetic fields reach through the earth to rip everything mankind has ever built from the ground. Soon, the X-Men arrive. Some fight En Sabanur's disciples, while Maximoff and Mystique go to Eric. She reminds him that he still has family, her and Charles. He never had a chance to save his family before, but right now, he does. Maximoff wants to tell him that he has a son too, but he can't bring himself to say it yet. And Sabanur, meanwhile, has begun transferring his consciousness into Xavier until Nightcrawler rescues the professor, but not before the transference leaves a peculiar side effect: rapid hair loss. Unwilling to accept defeat, the villain grabs Mystique and threatens to kill her unless Charles shows himself. It's enough to show Storm she's on the wrong side. Mystique has always been a hero to her. Finally, Charles realizes he and Sabanur are still connected, so he faces him in the link between their minds. Charles isn't powerful enough alone, but he isn't. Magneto has been moved by Mystique's pleas and turns on his new master. Cyclops joins in too. It still isn't enough. In their minds, Charles is still losing the psychic battle. Thankfully, the X-Men have another telepath on their team, one who has only just begun to discover her potential: Jean Grey. Together, they finally destroy Sabanur, and the world is saved. In the aftermath of the battle, Charles restores McTaggart's memories and apologizes for stealing them away. Back in Westchester, Jean and Magneto get to work putting the school back together. Finally, Magneto and Professor X have a conversation they have had and will have many times again. Charles continues to espouse hope, while Eric asks, what will Charles do the day they come for him and his children? Charles answers, I feel a great swell of pity for the poor soul that comes to my school looking for trouble. And at Stryker's facility, trouble brews. They clean up the mess after Weapon X's rampage, and a representative from Essex Corp arrives to collect a sample of Logan's blood. But over the next decade, since preventing the apocalypse, the X-Men are more popular than ever, and they no longer have to fight from the shadows. In fact, Xavier has a direct line to the President of the United States. It all seems too good to be true, and Raven worries that it is. She worries that it's all going to Xavier's head. Lately, she's seen him pushing the X-Men to take bigger and bigger risks on humanity's behalf. She worries it's more for his ego than anything else. One day, he even sends the X-Men to space when a shuttle loses control. They rescue the astronauts, which means getting close to the thing which disabled their craft. A strange force, unlike anything they've seen before, and during the rescue, it gets absorbed into Jean. When they return home, though, that force does not seem to have hurt Jean. In fact, she is more powerful than ever. Scott couldn't be more relieved. In the time since they met all those years ago, they've grown closer and have been seeing each other. Same with Raven and Hank. After confronting Xavier, telling him how easily he could have gotten Jean killed by pushing them too far, she next goes to Hank. She tells him that maybe it's time they leave. The X-Men are different now, but Hank is not yet ready to abandon their cause. And at a party that night, Scott tells Jean what the other kids are calling her: Phoenix. It's right after that she loses control, hearing voices and letting out a blast of energy. Xavier gets in her head to see what's wrong. Whatever happened in space is tearing down those walls he built over 20 years ago. The pain and trauma are returning. But not only that, she also tunes in to her father's voice and finds out he's alive. Charles has been lying to her all this time. She leaves the school to find her father. He's subtle about it at first, but soon it's obvious. This is not a happy reunion for him. In fact, if it were up to him, he never would have seen her again. Charles knew this would happen. He and the X-Men rush to meet her. The X-Jet arrives, and soon, so do the police. Jean feels threatened and overwhelmed. She lashes out, and they find out just how powerful she can be. Her telepathy is faster than Quicksilver, immune to Storm's lightning, but Raven does not attack. She only wants Jean to know that she isn't alone. They are on her side. So Raven gets close, and Jean pushes her away, hard into the broken, jagged wood of the house destroyed by their fight. As though the spell is suddenly broken, Jean rushes to her friend and the blood gets on her hands. She flies off and Hank takes her place. The wood stabbing through her lungs makes it impossible to catch her breath. So with the little that remains, Raven tells Hank that she loves him. After the funeral, Scott continues to believe that Jean can be saved. What happened to Raven wasn't her fault. For Hank, that's a tough sell. He loved Raven, and when she asked him to leave the X-Men, he refused. Instead, she stayed a little while longer, long enough to die. He blames himself for what happened, but he also blames Jean and Xavier for burying her pain with no thought to what would happen when it finally escaped. As for Jean, she isn't sure who to blame or what to think, or how to handle the fact that she killed someone she loves, that she's hurt people. She seeks guidance from someone who has experience in that area, Magneto, who now runs a mutant refuge. She asks him how he stopped hurting people, and he tells her. He killed, hoping it would ease the pain of his own loss, but it didn't bring back the ones he loved, nor did it rid him of the pain of their loss. So he stopped. That doesn't help Jean, because she isn't choosing to kill, she just loses control. When the military comes looking for her, she loses control again. Magneto can barely protect them, but his magnetic field holds long enough against her psychic one, and they're able to escape. After that, he tells her to leave. She does, and then someone finds her, someone with answers. Vuk, a member of the Dabari, a race of extraterrestrials whose planet was destroyed by a powerful cosmic force. The same force that gave life to the universe. The same force that was drawn to Jean. The few living Dabari have been searching for it, to control it. So far, it has destroyed everything in its path. Except Jean. She is more powerful than she realizes. And with Vuk's help, she could learn to control this power, to create worlds, to create life, and become the greatest force in the galaxy. The X-Men come looking for her, but they aren't the only ones. After Jean left Magneto, Hank came to him. He told him who Jean killed. Now, they are both here looking to avenge Raven. Magneto gets to her, but is no match for her new powers. Xavier comes next, not to kill her, but to bring her back. He invites her to look into his mind, and she does. She sees years of Xavier not controlling her, but offering her choices, a home, family, and hope. Jean wakes up and tells Vuk she doesn't want this power. Vuk will take it instead. She starts to drain it from Jean until Xavier sees. Taking the power will kill her. Vuk smiles, and after that, the Dabari will use the power to kill them all and take Earth for themselves. Cyclops gets inside and stops the power transfer, but their public battle has caught the attention of the MCU, the Mutant Containment Unit. The X-Men and Magneto are all taken into custody, where Charles tells Eric and Hank the truth. It wasn't Jean that killed Raven, and Charles admits he was wrong to put those barriers in her mind, but that didn't make her kill either. It was the cosmic force controlling Jean. So this time, when the Dabari come looking for her, rather than fight each other, Xavier, Eric, Hank, and the rest all fight together. The MCU realizes that as humans, they are outmatched, so they let the mutants go to fight this battle. They find the Dabari are strong and near impervious to every attack. At first, they mostly only succeed in slowing them down, until Charles and Jean speak telepathically. He apologizes for what he did to her, how he only wanted to protect her and give her what every child deserves, a family. She understands it was a choice made from love, and forgives him. After that, Jean takes control of her power. She sends her friends out of the blast zone before vaporizing the Dabari one by one, leaving only Vuk, the most powerful one. The alien grabs hold of Jean to absorb her power. Jean fights back, but the collateral damage starts to hurt her friends. Instead, she flies Vuk to space and does it there instead. From Earth, Her family, the X-Men, look up to see an explosion of energy in the shape of a phoenix. Vuk is gone, and so, it seems, is Jean. In the days that follow, Xavier retires, making Hank McCoy the new headmaster of the renamed Jean Grey School for Gifted Youngsters. Eric approaches Charles for a game of chess, but first, he reminds him of how Charles offered him a home years ago. Now Eric would like to do the same, offering Charles a place at his mutant refuge. And though neither looks up to see it, a fiery phoenix flies above them. About a decade later, Alkali Transigen, a subsidiary of Essex Corp, decides to take control of the mutant population. Step 1 is to stop it from happening at random, so they develop a gene therapy which suppresses the mutant gene, and they discreetly distribute it in everything from sweet drinks to breakfast cereal. Over time, this should prevent the random emergence of mutants. Then they can work on Step 2, making their own mutants in a lab, ones they can control. Then, somehow, Deadpool gets his own movie. The guy from X-Men Origins Wolverine? Not exactly. That took place in 1979, so the events were overridden by Days of Future Past. In the new timeline, it seems like Wade was never a part of Stryker's team or turned into Weapon 11, though that doesn't explain why he looks 39 in this movie when he looked 30, 40 years ago. But worrying about that is like worrying about why Xavier was bald and could walk in 79 when he was paralyzed in 62 and didn't lose his hair until 83. Hey, let's just call it a clone or multiverse, move on, and keep the fourth wall breaks to a minimum from here on out. Deal?
Maximum effort.
Wade Wilson is a mercenary who only takes the jobs where he gets to hurt people who deserve it, and he has the skills to pull it off, thanks to his time in Special Forces, where he racked up 41 confirmed kills. He enjoys the job, almost as much as he enjoys running his mouth. Between gigs, he hangs out at Sister Margaret's School for Wayward Girls, a bar that doubles as a job fair for mercs. He and the bartender Weasel are close friends, who both play a grim betting game, the Deadpool, where they put their money on who among the mercenaries will next end up dead. One day at Wayward Girls, he meets a girl named Vanessa, an escort who shares his dark sense of humor.
Rough childhood.
Rougher than yours. Daddy left before I was born.
Daddy left before I was conceived.
Ever had a cigarette put out on your skin?
Where else do you put one out?
They go back and forth like that for a while, and over the next year, they fall in love. And do stuff which, if I showed it to you, would get this video demonetized faster than Quicksilver. Okay, I'll stop. Things couldn't be going better. She even accepts his engagement ring pop, right before he collapses, the first sign of late-stage cancer. At the bar one day, a man comes to see him. He offers hope. The world needs extraordinary soldiers. The organization he works for makes them. He could not only cure Wade's cancer, but make him a superhero in the process. Wade doesn't know if it'll work, but he does know that he wants Vanessa to remember him as he is now, not as whatever cancer will turn him into. So he leaves her. At worst, he disappears, and she can always remember this version of him. At best, he's cured and comes back to her. As it turns out, the worst is worse than that. This organization does not make superheroes. They make super slaves. First, they administer a serum to wake up latent mutant abilities. They provide the necessary catalyst to activate them: stress, induced via relentless torture. If it turns out Wade has no mutant genes, the torture will kill him. But if he does, they'll eventually kick in. Then they'll fit him with a control collar and sell him to the highest bidder. Francis, who calls himself Ajax, but we'll call him Francis, is the one in charge. He went through the process himself. It gave him super reflexes and scorched his nerve endings so he no longer feels pain. For Wade, they try all manner of torture. Nothing takes until they stick him in a chamber and lower the oxygen, just enough to keep him on the edge of suffocation. They intend to leave him there for the weekend. That's when it happens. A healing factor wakes up and meets his cancer in a stalemate. The disease scars him from head to toe, while the mutation keeps him alive. Francis claims he's seen this before and could cure him, but where's the fun in that? Instead, he locks Wade back in the chamber just for fun. Though Francis has made a fatal miscalculation, his assistant Angel has a proclivity for keeping a match in her mouth like a toothpick. Wade got a hold of one. When they shut the chamber, he lights it. Oxygen meets flame, and the facility explodes. Wade and Francis fight. It ends with Wade impaled and left in the burning building. He crawls out of its ashes, and when night turns to day, he finds Vanessa. But he sees the way people look at his new face, and suddenly, the idea of Vanessa seeing him is less appetizing. He's going to stay out of her life, until he gets a hold of Francis and makes him fix what he did. All Wade has to do is find him, but since the facility burned, he's disappeared. So Wade will have to hurt the right people to find him. Weasel suggests he wear a mask. Francis thinks Wade died in the fire. He should keep it that way. And looking at the scoreboard for their betting game, they choose a name.
Captain Deadpool. No, just Deadpool, yeah.
Then he gets on with beating, killing, and asking questions until someone will tell him, where is Francis? The guy who recruited Wade is the one who finally gives him up. But Deadpool's recent activities have also gotten the attention of the X-Men. So when he finally corners Francis, Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead interrupt him. Colossus especially admonishes him for the gratuitous violence, and invites him to instead become a hero, join the X-Men. The distraction gives Francis the chance he needs to disappear again, and now he knows that Wade is still alive, and he knows that Wade is the guy in the red suit who's been killing his men. So he draws him out by doing a little digging. He finds out about Vanessa, kidnaps her, and tells Wade when and where to come get her. Noon at the scrapyard. Deadpool grabs every gun he can get his hands on, puts him in a bag, forgets the bag, then heads to the X-Mansion and makes a deal. He'll join the X-Men if Colossus and Negasonic help him get Vanessa back. They fight through his men, rescue Vanessa, and Deadpool gets his hands on Francis. Finally, it's time to administer that cure. It's time to fix Wade's face. Francis laughs. Of course there's no cure. Deadpool points out his mistake. Francis just told him he can't do the one thing he's keeping him alive for. Deadpool puts a gun to his forehead until Colossus stops him. He tells him about being a hero. It only takes 4 or 5 moments in life when you're offered a tough choice, but you make the right call anyway.
Why?
You were droning on.
Yeah, Deadpool shoots him in the face, obviously, but promises Colossus he'll be on the lookout for the next 4 moments. Finally, he faces Vanessa. He tells her how sorry he is, how scared he was for her to see his face. But when she does, of course, she accepts him. But Deadpool made $783 million on a budget of $58, especially impressive for an R-rated film.
Now I'm talked about in the same sentence as Jesus. Passion of the Christ, then me. At least domestically. We beat them overseas.
Of course, there had to be a sequel, so there couldn't be a happily ever after. It happens on their anniversary. Wade and Vanessa decide to start a family, but fate has other plans. Men show up at their house. Men with guns out for revenge after one of Deadpool's many jobs. With his new abilities, he's been going after monsters, taking the jobs no one else would touch. Now he finds out what it costs. Wade kills the mobsters, but all it takes is one stray bullet. Vanessa is killed. Wade swiftly avenges her. But that does little to console him. The following days are a drunk, drug-fueled stupor that ends with a decision. Wade is going to put himself out of his misery, but at least he'll do it in style, feeding himself to polar bears at the zoo. But his healing factor is strong. He downs drain cleaner and jumps off a building, even blows himself up. For a moment, it sends him to what might be heaven. He sees Vanessa, who cryptically tells him his heart's not in the right place. Then he wakes up at the X-Mansion after Colossus picked up his rapidly healing would-be corpse. He hopes to make an X-Man of him yet. Speaking of which, where are the X-Men? Like the last time, the place is empty, other than Colossus and Negasonic. Though if Deadpool turned around, he'd see Xavier, Beast, Cyclops, and a few others, which is really confusing because they haven't aged a day since Dark Phoenix, which took place about 25 years before the events of this movie. Unless you're telling me the Deadpool movies actually take place in the 90s, but I mean, they obviously don't.
Is that a fanny pack? I used to have one of those in 1990, never.
Of course, Deadpool hardly wants to live, let alone join the X-Men, until Colossus says something peculiar. He tells Wade that he could have a family here, that he has a good heart and it belongs here, where it can grow. He remembers Vanessa telling him his heart isn't in the right place. Maybe this is what she meant. The X-Men is the right place. He's welcomed as a trainee, and soon invited on his first mission, at the Essex House for Mutant Rehabilitation, where a kid named Russell is having another episode. He has the power of fire, and he's using it again, turning on the staff. Deadpool tries talking to Russell, who goes by Fire Fist, by choice. When that doesn't work, he knocks him out instead. The authorities fit him with a power restraint collar to prevent use of his mutant abilities. But before Deadpool lets them take him away, he has a talk with him, and he confirms his suspicion. This school is abusing the children, trying to beat the mutant genes out of them. So Deadpool starts shooting people, killing at least one. Colossus subdues him, then Deadpool gets his own collar, before he and Fire Fist are tossed in the icebox, prison for mutants. The kid is angry. No one has ever looked out for him or pitied him, so it's time to look out for himself. First thing he'll do when he gets out of here is burn that headmaster alive. As for Deadpool, with that collar around his neck, his healing factor is gone. So he'll wait for the tumors to grow and look forward to a reunion with Vanessa. Fire Fist is looking for a friend, a partner, but Deadpool refuses. He's too busy dying. But killer soldiers from the future do wonders for motivating heroes. One shows up at the prison, guns blazing, and seems to go right for Wade Wilson. But he isn't there for Wade. He's there for Russell, Fire Fist. In the fight, Deadpool's collar is broken. The healing factor returns. Now it's a fair fight. And of course, he can't stand by to watch this guy murder a child. Deadpool steals his future gun, points it at him, and tells him to talk. His name's Cable, and he wants to know why Deadpool is protecting Fire Fist. Deadpool denies it.
Why are you protecting the kid? I don't give a about him and his "are you my mother" complex.
He pulls the pin off Cable's grenade, and the explosion flings them both out of the prison. In another near-death experience, Wade sees Vanessa. Now he's sure that he's solved her riddle. It's the kid. His heart in the right place means helping that kid. And right now, that kid needs it. He overheard what Deadpool said about not caring about him. Now, he's more certain than ever he's got to look out for himself. Deadpool, meanwhile, gets to work. Fire Fist and the other prisoners are getting transferred to a Supermax. That'll be his chance to free him, but it will be tough. So he and Weasel hold auditions to pull together a team they call X-Force. They choose Bedlam, distorts electric fields. Zeitgeist, spits acidic vomit. The Vanisher, invisibility. Shatterstar, he's an alien. Domino, the power of luck. And Peter.
I have both type 1 and 2 diabetes.
Soon, it's time. The prison convoy is on the move. And pretty much everyone in X-Force dies. Like, immediately. Except Domino, because she's lucky, right? It makes sense? Oh, and it turns out the Vanisher is played by Brad Pitt. But Domino is lucky, so she has no trouble getting into the convoy. Only problem, Cable is here too. At the threat of torture, Weasel squealed and shared their plan. Deadpool and Cable fight over Russell, who soon reveals the tiebreaker on his side. After Deadpool abandoned him at the prison, Russell befriended the biggest guy at the icebox, the monster they keep in the basement. Now, he lets him out to play. the Juggernaut. By the way, the Juggernaut is Xavier's brother. He wears the helmet so Xavier can't read his mind. Once the big mutant joins the fight, it's over. As he and Russell leave, Deadpool tries to stop them and tries to tell Russell he cares about him after all. But to Russell, it's too little too late, and Deadpool can't follow them on account of Juggernaut ripped him in half. While his legs grow back, Cable recovers and asks for help. With Juggernaut free, Cable won't be able to kill Russell alone, and he needs to. That kid is about to burn his headmaster alive. The orphanage will go down in flames, killing all the other kids inside too. Once Russell does that, he'll get a taste for killing. He'll like it, and he'll keep killing. In the future, it's Cable's job to stop people like that. He came close a few times, so Russell decided to hurt him by killing his wife and daughter. Deadpool agrees to help, but he will not kill a child. Instead, he will save his soul by stopping him from killing to begin with. He'll make sure he never gets that taste of death. Cable agrees to give him 30 seconds. If he fails, Cable puts a bullet in him. On their way to the orphanage, Deadpool stops at the mansion to recruit Colossus and Negasonics' help. But Colossus has had his heart broken too many times, and he refuses. Deadpool tells him that doing the right thing is sometimes messy and f***ed up, and not particularly convenient. That eventually changes his mind, and Colossus shows up at the orphanage in the middle of Deadpool and Company's fight against the Juggernaut. He can tell his help is sorely needed when he finds Deadpool with a picket in his brain. Fire Fist nearly kills the headmaster until Deadpool stands in the way and tries to tell him there are people in this world besides him who will treat you right. Russell doesn't believe him and flames him away. So Deadpool proves it. He puts on a power restraint collar and starts walking up to Russell. This time, without a healing factor, if Russell takes a shot at him, it could actually kill him. Before Deadpool gets to him, Russell prepares to incinerate the headmaster. So Cable takes his shot, and Deadpool leaps in the path of the bullet. The wound is mortal. Deadpool sacrificed his life for him. Russell finally believes people can care about him. The blood of Cable's daughter, crusted on her favorite teddy bear, vanishes. The future has been changed, and his family will live. After a lot of last words, Deadpool dies.
Do you want to build a snowman?
But Cable has enough fuel left in his time machine for one more trip. It was meant to bring him home, but instead, he uses it to go back and save Wade's life. The events repeat. Deadpool takes the bullet, but this time, Cable has put something in Deadpool's front pocket to deflect the bullet. The same point is made for Russell, but Wade gets to live. Without the fuel to return home, Cable will stick around here in the present to make sure the world doesn't shit itself into oblivion. Afterward, Negasonic and her girlfriend Yukio, who I didn't mention before because she's not super relevant to the plot, but she is delightful.
Bye, Ray.
Bye, Yukio.
Hi, Ray.
And hi, Yukio. That was really nice of you to say hi, so I'm saying hi back.
Despite representing yet another continuity issue, because we already met Yukio in the Wolverine. But hey, new timeline, and I guess she's younger in this timeline. As I was saying, they repair the time machine. Then Wade uses it to save Vanessa, save Peter, kill Deadpool, tell Wolverine to make another movie, which, hey, he listened, kill Ryan Reynolds before he can make Green Lantern, and pay baby Hitler a visit. In a world with mutants, there are facilities like Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, safe havens. Then there are facilities like the one where Danny wakes up. Last thing she remembers is a storm that overtook her reservation. But it wasn't just a storm. She heard growling. Next thing she knew, she was here, chained to a hospital bed. Dr. Reyes explains everything. A tornado killed everyone at the reservation. Danny was the sole survivor because she is special. She is a mutant. Her employer has a way of sensing mutants, so they know. This place is a facility for people like her, teen mutants who need extra care before they can go on to live healthy adult lives. Danny will have to stay here until Reyes is sure that she is not a danger, and right now, they don't even know what her power is. The next day is her first group session, where she meets the others. Sam, Ileana, Roberto, and Rain. None are quick to open up, but Ileana certainly makes a first impression when she tells Danny there isn't actually anything to stop them leaving. Danny ends up with a nosebleed after running face first into a force field. Rain makes a decidedly better impression, talking Danny off the literal ledge, who was looking for a permanent solution to her survivor's guilt. Instead, she spends the day with a new friend, and that night, she sleeps soundly, but not everyone does. Sam finds himself face to face with his worst memory. 1 second he's doing laundry, the next he's in a coal mine. He joined his dad there one day, then his powers manifested for the first time. Sam turned into a human cannonball, killing his dad and most of his crew. It feels like he's actually there again, and when he's launched out of it back to reality, slamming his back on a machine, that feels real too. The next day, it's Rain's turn. While she's in the chapel making confession to no one, she suddenly hears the angry voice of her old preacher, the one who beat her half to death, calling her a witch and branding her for the crime of being a mutant. That night, the other kids bring her to their hangout spot in the attic. They take turns on the lie detector and ask each other questions. Ileana's question is about Danny's bear necklace. Her dad gave it to her. He told her about the demon bear who lives inside us all and feeds on our fear. The bear starts out small when we're born, but grows as we get older and more afraid. The necklace reminds her of how small it was when she was born, so she won't be afraid. At the next group session, Reyes reminds them the importance of obedience. They must do as they're told if they want any hope of moving on to her superior's facility. The children all assume she's talking about the X-Men and Xavier. Ileana, however, does not do well with obedience. She spikes the doctor's tea, and once she's out, they party. Soon, they pair off. Rain takes Danny somewhere special, through the vents to a place outside. They lay down next to each other. Danny tells her what her dad used to say, how the body is a beautiful cage that traps you until death frees your soul to be with the ones you love. And Danny tells her how she almost cannot believe that Rain is real. She's too nice to her. Maybe Danny just made her up. So they kiss, proving that she really is here. Meanwhile, Roberto finds Ileana in the pool and joins her, but it's the same as always. His body gets too hot, just like it did with his girlfriend, and soon the memory is reality, just like it was for Rain with her preacher and Sam in the coal mines. Roberto's girlfriend is suddenly in the pool in place of Ileana, the one he burned to death in his arms when his mutation first manifested. The waking nightmare triggers his powers, covering him head to toe in flames. That sets off an alarm, finally waking Dr. Reyes. She tells Roberto that Ileana was never in the pool, he was alone the whole time, and she punishes Ileana for spiking her tea, tossing her in solitary. Then it's time to learn more about Danny. Reyes gives her an injection to make her relaxed, but as they talk, Danny gets a vision, the truth about this facility. Reyes' superior is not Charles Xavier, it's Essex Corp. The children here are not training to become X-Men. They are training to become child soldiers, living, breathing weapons. It's a stressful vision that triggers Danny's powers again, the ability to make people face their worst fears. In the showers, Rain gets branded again by the preacher she killed. But unlike a normal nightmare, the pain is real, and when they find her, she has a second branding. After that, Dr. Reyes gets a command from her superiors. Danny is powerful, but dangerous. Reyes should collect a DNA sample, then put down the subject. So one night, she takes a DNA sample, then straps Danny to a table and starts putting her to sleep. That triggers some more waking nightmares, this time plucked from Illyana's memories. Freakish men with smiling masks, the men who once abused her, filtered through the imagination of a traumatized child. When Rain hears Danny scream and realizes the doctor is killing her, she triggers her own mutation. She turns into a wolf and rips up the doctor's face. The bleeding doctor runs through the facility, while the other kids fight off the smiling people. Illyana does it with her own power, traveling through a dimension she created in her mind, and brings from it an energy sword. They reconvene with Danny and Rain. They have to get out of here, and the only way is to take down those force fields, by taking down their source. They have to kill Dr. Reyes.
Let's kill the bitch.
But the doctor is powerful in her own way. She traps each of the kids in their own force field. She will suffocate Danny, but Danny too is powerful. She may not yet have control over her abilities, but when fight or flight kicks in, her mind opts for fight and summons a giant bear, the same one that wiped out her reservation. It does kill Dr. Reyes. But now, the kids have a giant demon bear to contend with, and Danny's unconscious from the temporary lack of oxygen. The kids each use their abilities to keep it at bay, but it's clear the bear will soon kill them all. Until Danny has a vision of her father. He tells her that it wasn't her fault, and now she needs to wake up. She is bigger than that bear. She does wake up. She tames the bear, and it vanishes. When the sun rises, with that force field down, the New Mutants are finally able to leave the facility. By 2028, Alkali Transigen's work has paid off. There hasn't been a new mutant born in over 20 years, and the ones that live are getting older, including Charles Xavier. Sometimes his mind isn't all there. Sometimes he loses control. One particularly bad episode injures 600 people and kills 7 mutants, including several of the X-Men. After that, the HSA classifies Xavier's brain as a weapon of mass destruction, and the X-Men are disbanded. By 2029, Logan has taken Charles over the border to Mexico, where they stay at an abandoned smelting plant, far enough from other people that Charles can't hurt anyone. He keeps the old professor on a regiment of medications, shots to mellow the seizures, which unleash his powers, pills to stop them from happening. They do dampen his powers and seizures, but also his other cognitive abilities. Charles spends his days in a fog, living in a tank as a barrier to shield his mind. Logan isn't doing too well himself. He's also getting older. His wounds don't heal as fast. They hurt. He cleans pus from his knuckles where the claws come out. His hands shake, and the adamantium that covers his bones is poisoning him. Helping him take care of Charles is an old friend, Caliban, a fellow mutant with the ability to sense other mutants. Logan passes the days working as a driver in El Paso, Texas, but he still kills when he has to, like when some men pick a fight, and a drunken Logan slaughters them. That's how word gets out the Wolverine is back. That's how Gabriella finds him. She brings a little girl with her named Laura and begs for his help. Logan ignores them. Whatever help they need is not his problem. All he wants is to make enough money to buy a boat, so he and Charles can live out the rest of their days on the water, far from civilization and safe. But as much as Logan wants to walk away, whatever this thing is won't let him. A guy with a metal arm named Pierce finds him. He wants to know where Gabriella is, because she took something he's responsible for retrieving, that little girl. He also found Logan thanks to his recent performance as the Wolverine. Realizing the attention he's drawn, it's time to get out on the ocean. Gabriella offers $50,000 to drive her and Laura to some coordinates in North Dakota. That will be enough for the boat. He takes the job, but when he arrives to pick her up, they got to her first. Gabriella is dead. Laura sneaks into his trunk, and Logan unknowingly brings her home. When Pierce and his men come looking for her, Logan sees what she really is, something Charles told him, but he didn't believe. She's a mutant just like him, complete with healing factor and adamantium claws, though hers are different, 2 in each hand, 1 in each foot. She kills most of the men Pierce sends after her herself. Logan lends a hand too, and after the slaughter, they finally escape. Logan, Charles, and Laura, though Caliban's been taken by Pierce. It all starts to make sense. A video Gabriella left behind fills in most of the blanks. Alkali Transigen is genetically engineering mutants using DNA they've gotten their hands on over the years, including Logan's. That's why he and Laura share the same mutation. She is his daughter, and like the other children, she's been trained as a soldier. But Transigen realized that people are hard to control. They've been working on something new, something without a soul that will only do as it's told. So the children who refused to become killers were made obsolete. They started putting them to sleep. Gabriella got Laura out, but doesn't know if any others survived. Logan takes them to a hotel in Oklahoma City where they hold up, while he gets rid of the car to swap it for a new one. First, he finds a pill stashed in the back seat where Charles was sitting. It seems that he hasn't been taking his medication. While Logan waits for the dealership to prepare his new car, he sits at a bar. He flips through one of Laura's X-Men comics, where real events have been turned into fantasy, and on a particular page, he finds the X-Men heading to a safe haven located at particular coordinates, the same coordinates he's supposed to be driving Laura to. The whole damn thing is a fantasy. There is nothing waiting for them in North Dakota. When he gets back to the hotel, Pierce's men are there. Caliban can sense mutants, so they tortured him into finding his friends. But Charles hasn't been taking his meds. He freezes everyone at the hotel. Logan is able to fight through the psychic roadblock, and with Pierce's men stuck still, slaughters them easily. They quickly get back on the highway when a horse trailer is run off the road. The horses get loose. Charles insists they help. He uses his mind to guide the horses back, and Logan helps get their pickup back on the road. The family is thankful. They invite them home for a meal. Charles insists they accept. They have a nice dinner. For Laura, it's the first normal family dinner she's ever had. For Charles, it's the most perfect night he's had in a very long time. But he doesn't deserve it. He's remembered what happened in Westchester. He tells all this to Logan, only to find he is not speaking to Logan, but some younger, monstrous version of him. The imposter stabs his adamantium claws into Charles' chest. Pierce has found them again, and now he's unleashed the secret weapon, that thing without a soul, a clone of Wolverine who follows orders without question. The whole family, father, mother, and son, are slaughtered. Collateral damage. Charles dies in Logan's arms. Caliban blows himself up to give them a fighting chance, but the aged Logan struggles against his younger clone. He and Laura barely make it out alive. When daylight returns, Logan buries his old friend in a place near some water. Laura takes his shaking hand. Once they're back on the road, she insists on North Dakota. He tells her it's a lie from a comic book. She is persistent.
What? Okay, shut the fuck up!
And they continue on. When Logan nearly passes out driving, she takes over, and soon he finds those coordinates might have been written for a comic. They might have been fantasy, but the children made it real. Those coordinates became their rendezvous point for those who escaped the facility. They treat Logan with a special serum from the lab. A small dose expedites the healing factor, helping him to recover from the fight with young Wolverine. Too much makes you crazy, kills you, but a small dose works. At night, Laura shows Logan what she found in his things, an adamantium bullet, the one he's been planning to put in his head. Logan passes out again. She takes it away from him. He wakes up after 2 days in bed. They have to move. If they stay in one place too long, Alkali will find them. But this was the plan. They had to wait because everyone had until today to find their way here. Tomorrow, before dawn, they will head over the border to a safe haven in Canada. The next day, the children leave. Logan does not go with them, until he realizes that his worries did come to pass. Alkali found them. Laura had the coordinates written on the back of a photo, which she left at that family's home. The children do their best to fight off Pierce and his men. Logan is too weak to catch up, so he trades what's left of his life for a fighting chance. That serum, too much can kill you, but for a time, it also makes you strong. The drugged-up Wolverine kills his way through Pierce's men until the high starts to wear off, and Xander Rice introduces himself. His father worked on the Weapon X program. He's one of the people Logan killed when the X-Men freed him from his cell almost 50 years ago. Rice fills in some blanks. How he developed the gene therapy that suppresses mutation. How he snuck it into the food supply to stop random mutancy. Then all that was left was to make their own mutants, so they would control the only supply. Wolverine was part of Weapon X. Laura, X-23, and Wolverine's soulless clone, X-24. Logan ends the villain monologue with a bullet to Rice's head. That's his signal for the children to attack. They take out Pierce, while he and Laura take on X-24. Logan ends up impaled on a tree, but before X-24 can finish the job, Laura puts that adamantium bullet in his skull. The new Wolverine is dead, and the old one dying. He has enough life left in him to leave his daughter with a plea: don't be what they made you. And he takes his final seconds to enjoy this feeling, the feeling of having a family, to love and be loved. The children bury him and put a cross of sticks over his makeshift grave. But before they leave, Laura turns the cross on its side, and it becomes an X. And for now, that's the last we see of the X-Men. But Deadpool and Wolverine is upon us, and according to Kevin Feige, the MCU is now entering the mutant era. So stay tuned for updates to this timeline and more X-Men content. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next One Take.